My name is Pastor Richard Cox, and I'm the pastor of Overflow Church here in Altoona, and I want to invite you to join pastors, leaders, and emerging leaders from across our region for a 3-month learning experience we're calling Saturate, a deeper conversation. The pastors in our region have been gathering together, praying for revival in the church and awakening in our region, and I believe God is on the move, and it's time to take the conversation around gospel saturation to another level. Maybe you're wondering, what is gospel saturation? Gospel saturation happens when every man, woman, and child has repeated opportunities to hear and respond to the good news about Jesus. And maybe you're thinking, well, everybody's already heard the good news. Well, that's what I thought. You see, I grew up in a pastor's home here in North America, and I thought we lived in a nation of prodigals, in a nation where everybody had heard the gospel, but simply chosen to reject it. Then as a teenager, my family moved to Africa where we lived as missionaries. And when I returned to the States, God began to open my eyes to the number of people who were living in our community within the shadow of our steeple, who were literally driving past and walking past our churches every day, but had never had anyone enter into their life for the purpose of sharing the good news about Jesus. Now, don't get me wrong. They knew the church exists, and they had heard the name of Jesus, although for most of them, it was merely a swear word. But no one had ever taken the time to build a relationship with them to ensure that they had heard and had opportunity to respond to the good news of Jesus. It was then that God began to break my heart for the number of lost people who were living right here in our region. You see, while I was in Africa, I had the opportunity to spend time with the pastors in Mozambique. It was an encouraging time for me as a young leader growing up watching these pastors. And one of the things that I noticed with the pastors in Mozambique, where God was doing amazing things, is that they seemed to be more concerned with how many lost people were in their nation than how big their church was. Every time that you talk to them, or you would overhear conversations that the pastors would have when they got together, it was always focused on how many lost people were in their community, how many lost people were in their province, how many lost people were in their nation, and what were they as the church doing to ensure that every man, woman, and child in their country had repeated opportunities to hear and respond to the good news about Jesus. And as a response to that, the church was growing at rapid rates. On the flip side, it seems like every time I'm at a pastor's gathering in the States, somebody comes up to me and asks, how big is your church, or how is your church doing? It's a question that many pastors hate. It's not entirely a bad question, but I think it's the wrong question, because in North America, we've been consumed with how well our local church is doing, and we've lost sight of how many lost people are living in our community. I really think that we as in the church need to start asking, how many lost people are in our community? How many lost people are in our city? How many lost people are in our region? How many lost people are in our country? And how many lost people are we as our local church responsible for? Is that number changing? Just to give you a picture of the state of lostness here in central Pennsylvania, there are roughly 290,000 people in our region that claim no affiliation with the church or a relationship with Jesus. That's roughly 50% of the population here in central Pennsylvania claim no connection to a church. Several years ago, I was doing some research on the state of the church here in Altoona and discovered that if awakening happens, and in the course of the next year, every single church in our city doubles in size, there would still be 80% of the population of Altoona not in church on any given Sunday. Now, you need to understand, if every church in our city doubled in size, we would be shouting, we would be celebrating, we would be writing books, we would be telling the world about what God is doing in our city, and yet there would still be 80% of the population not in church on any given Sunday. The task before us is significant. It's more than any pastor, leader, or local church can do on its own. It requires all of the churches coming together and working together around the mission that Jesus Christ has called all of us on. all of us as the churches in this region have been called to join God on His mission of providing hope in Jesus. It's the mission we've all been called to. And so I want to invite you to join us for this 3-month experience called Saturate, a Deeper Conversation. We're going to have 2 Saturday training events that are going to be from 8 to 5. The first one is going to be on February 10th, and the second one is going to be on April 27th. On those in-person training days, we're going to hear from Pastor Jim Balzano, Pastor Tim McGarvey, John Collins, Kevin DeLapp, and myself, who are going to be talking to us about what it means to see gospel saturation in our region. We're going to have times of classroom where we're going to learn, and then we're going to break everybody up into a cohort that you're going to journey together with over the 3-month experience. And every time we meet, you're going to get together with your cohort, and in those times, we're going to walk alongside of you, coach you, and equip you, and really help you apply what you're learning. We don't want to just give everybody information, but we really want to come alongside of everyone as we equip the church to work together to see gospel saturation in our region. In between those 2 in-person training events, we are going to have 6 Zoom calls that are going to take place every other Thursday on Zoom. We've reached out and connected with pastors across the country that are experiencing God do amazing things in their context. The first one is going to be on February 15th with Pastor Kevin Brown. He's the pastor of the Perfecting Church in Philadelphia, and he's going to be talking to us about mobilizing our people to use their jobs as their platform for ministry. We're going to hear from Pastor Micah Fries, who has been a missionary in Africa and now a pastor in North America, and is going to be talking to us about what it means to build relationships with people of other faiths. As Christians who care about the gospel, we have to enter into the lives of people that are growing up in other contexts with a worldview radically different from Christianity, and we need to enter into their lives and find opportunities to share the good news about Jesus, and he's going to be talking to us about that. Pastor Larry Wackemeyer is a pastor from California that pastored in an inner city context in Long Beach, California, and helped start 27 churches across their region, is going to be talking to us about mobilizing everyday missionaries to take the gospel where they live, work, and play. We're going to hear from Pastor Jervy Winsome, who is a pastor in Galveston, Texas. He's going to be talking to us about how we mobilize our people to live out their faith where they live, work, and play. Pastor Joel Repick is a local pastor here in Western Pennsylvania. He pastored Christian and Missionary Alliance Church, and back in 2005, while he was the youth pastor at that church, he started a development organization called Impact Aliquippa, and God used that ministry that he started to bring renewal to his church and birth more than 20 different expressions of the church that are reaching different groups of people right here in Western Pennsylvania. We're also going to hear from Pastor Dave Bidell. He is a pastor in New York City that is passionate about seeing gospel saturation in his city. And he's going to be talking to us about principles that we can take and apply in our context as we seek to see gospel saturation right here. So I hope you will consider joining us on this journey. You can register online by talking to your pastor. They can get you the information. There is a cost of $100. And maybe you're wondering, why is there a cost? Well, the $100 is going to cover all of the expenses for this event. There's going to be a meal. You're going to receive a book. We're also going to be giving a small stipend to the speakers that are from across the country that are going to be come and presenting to us. And at the end of this experience, any of the money that's left over, we're going to give back into the kingdom. And so if God calls somebody in this experience to go and start something new, we're going to use that money to help fund those new expressions that God is birthing in our region. So I hope you will join us for Saturate, a Deeper Conversation.